last class we looked at the basics of psychrometrics. We covered the few definitions, and we looked at a few properties of air as well. Today we'll be continuing with the same. Today also we have to cover a few of the remaining definitions which we were unable to cover in the last class. So here we go. We looked at one representation of air as a container of water. We all know that air is a mixture of gases plus some water vapor, and air, as we consider in psychrometrics, is devoid of water vapor. We consider air in real life as a mixture of dry air and water vapor. Now, the property of air, as we saw last time, is similar to that of a container. That is, as the temperature started increasing, the capacity of the air to hold moisture or water vapor also increased. As the temperature increases, the capacity of the air to hold moisture also increases. Now, air, as we know it, again to reiterate, consists of dry air and water vapor. Now, if we have air, ordinary air, that is air plus water vapor, and we start cooling it, what is going to happen is that as you cool it, the capacity of the air to hold moisture decreases. The capacity of the air to hold moisture decreases, and at some point in time, the capacity of the air is the same as the net moisture in the air. The capacity of the air is equal to the net amount of moisture in the air. The temperature at which this happens is termed as dew point temperature. Okay? Dew point temperature can be defined as the temperature to which the air is to be cooled at constant pressure so that it becomes saturated with water vapor. So in this condition, we can see that the air is currently saturated with water vapor. It cannot hold any more water vapor because the capacity of the air to hold water, the amount of the capacity, is the same as the amount of water vapor present in the air. Another definition that we need to look at is something called adiabatic saturation temperature. Now, to measure adiabatic saturation temperature and to understand what adiabatic saturation temperature is, that we have to look at a simple setup. Alright, so now what we consider is that there is a long insulated channel containing some water. There is a long insulated channel containing some water, and air passes through it. You've got unsaturated air passing through it. Okay, now as it passes through this channel, it absorbs some amount of water vapor. Now this channel length is such that at the end of this process, at the end of the channel, air which is exiting is just saturated. It is just saturated. As the air starts absorbing the water vapor, what happens is that this causes the temperature of the air to reduce. So let's assume that the air temperature initially was T1. After this cooling, the temperature will be T2. And if the specific humidity was W1, the final specific humidity is going to be W2. Similarly, if initially the relative humidity was phi 1, the final humidity is going to be phi 2 and is equal to 1, since at the end it is in saturated condition. Now, as it is passing, what is going to happen is that mf dot amount of fluid is going to be absorbed into the airflow every second. Alright? Okay. So, again, to recap, we have air flowing into a long insulated channel initially at T1. Now this air is non-saturated, unsaturated if you like, and at the final condition it is just saturated. Now as it passes through the channel, what's going to happen is that it's going to absorb some amount of water present in the channel, and that is going to cause its temperature to reduce to a value T2. Now, as the air is exiting the channel, this is in saturated condition. So this final temperature T2, when the air is just saturated, is termed as adiabatic saturation temperature. Now, what is going to happen is that part of the latent heat of vaporization, which causes this water to evaporate, comes from the air which is entering the channel. Thus, this air loses heat, loses energy, and which is given to the water in the channel, which causes it to evaporate and mix with the air flowing into the channel. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to analyze this as a steady state or steady flow process. We are going to analyze this entire system as a steady flow process. So to do that, we will assume that there is a constant amount of air which is entering the system and a constant amount of air which is exiting the system. Now this is dry air, this is dry air. So we assume that the dry air entering here is MA1, or the mass flow rate can be given as M dot A1, and the air which is exiting this, even though it's dry, even though it's saturated, the dry component is M dot A2. Since this is a steady state flow, what's going to happen is that MA1 is equal to MA2. Now, as we have seen before, this is also absorbing some amount of water. So naturally the water level would reduce, but since we are considering this to be a steady state process, what we are going to do is we are going to introduce some amount of water. We are going to be introducing some amount of water, and the amount of water which we introduce is the same amount as that being evaporated. So if MF dot is being evaporated into the air stream, we are going to be introducing M dot F. Also, what's going to happen is that we are introducing water which is also at the same temperature as the air exiting this. We are going to be introducing the water at the same temperature as the adiabatic saturation temperature, that is the temperature of the air exiting the saturator device. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to analyze this mathematically. So first we are going to do a mass balance. We're going to do a simple mass balance. First is for mass flow of dry air. Okay, so now in this case we assume that it was a steady state process, so the mass entering the system is the same as mass exiting the system. So MA dot 1 is equal to MA dot 2 is equal to MA dot. Okay, that means the mass flowing in is the same as mass flowing out is equal to some specific value. Now we are going to be also doing that for the vapor. So we can say that m dot W1, that is the mass of water vapor present in the air entering the system, plus m dot F, which is the rate of evaporation, is equal to m dot W2. So we have mass of water vapor entering the system plus the mass of water vapor which is being generated due to the evaporation process is equal to the mass of water vapor exiting the system, and this is the mass flow rate of water vapor. Now let us simplify this. We know that specific humidity can be defined as mass of water present in the air to the mass of dry air. So we are going to substitute that here. So we are going to get specific humidity at inlet into mass of air entering the system plus m dot F, that's the same term, and again we substitute the same here, mass of air into W2, that is the specific humidity at exit. Now we simplify this for m dot F, and we are going to get m dot F is equal to m dot A into W2 minus W1. Alright, so we have an equation which links the mass flow rate and the difference in specific humidity to the amount of water which is required, or the amount of water vapor which is being absorbed by the system. After performing a mass balance, we are also going to be doing an energy balance. Alright, so what we are assuming is that this is a steady state system. So the net energy flowing in is the same as the net energy flowing out. So E in is the same as E out. Also we have some assumptions. One is that this is an insulated system, so there is no heat flow across the boundary, and this is a passive system, so there's definitely no workflow across the boundary. Now the energy flowing into the system, is comprised of energy contained by the air, that is the enthalpy of air, and the enthalpy of water. The energy flowing out of the system is the enthalpy of air, that is the saturated air here. We assume that the air flowing in has some amount of moisture present in it. So HA, which is the enthalpy of dry air, plus plus W1 HW1 plus W2 minus W1 into HF2 is equal to HA2 plus WHG2. Now, what this means is that enthalpy of air coming into the system is comprised of enthalpy of dry air plus enthalpy of water vapor present in the air. That's why it's just W1 into enthalpy. So it is specific humidity into the enthalpy of water vapor in the air at the inlet plus difference in specific humidities, that is the enthalpy of water due to evaporation is equal to HA2, that is the enthalpy of dry air at outlet, plus enthalpy of water vapor at outlet. Alright, now what we are going to do is we are going to solve for W1, and once we solve for W1 we are going to get the following equation. W1 is equal to HA2 minus HA1, that is the difference of enthalpies of dry air, plus W2 into HG2 minus HF2 whole divided by HW1 minus HF2. We simplify this further. So we can simplify H as Cp dt. So Cp of air T2 minus T1 plus W2 and G minus F is equal to H F G 2 divided by HW1 minus HF2. This is equal to W1. Now, W2 in this case is equal to, from earlier, 0.622 PS upon P minus PS. This is coming in from your earlier last class, where the specific humidity at saturated condition, you get this formula. In psychrometrics, to attain different values of enthalpy, specific humidity, etc., we make use of something called a psychrometric chart. Psychrometric chart is nothing but a plot of dry bulb temperature versus specific humidity. Dry bulb temperature versus specific humidity. Now, this plot also has values for specific enthalpy, wet bulb temperature, and volume of the mixture, specific volume of the mixture, amongst a few other values. Now, here we see increasing values of dry bulb temperature on the x-axis, increasing values of specific humidity on the y-axis. On this curve, we see increasing values of wet bulb temperatures. We can see increasing values of wet bulb temperatures. Now, constant values for dry bulb temperatures, are in this direction. That means if you travel vertically upwards, they are going to be constant dry bulb temperature lines, and if you travel horizontally, they are going to be constant specific humidity lines. Here we have the wet bulb or saturation temperature values at the edge. Now these saturation temperature values are constant along this direction. You can see lines along this direction, along which saturation temperature or wet bulb temperature is constant. Also, you have values for specific enthalpy at saturation. Now these lines are collinear to the wet bulb saturation temperature lines. So they coincide with the lines of the specific enthalpy at saturation lines coincide with the wet bulb temperature lines. Alright, so they both have the same lines in this direction. Also, you have the specific volume lines. Now these are slightly different. They follow these lines. So you have got constant wet bulb temperature lines, and you have got constant enthalpy line. You have got constant volume lines, and you have got constant enthalpy or wet bulb temperature lines in this way. Also, you have got some lines in this direction. As you can see, these are the lines for relative humidity. As you go from here till here, your relative humidity increases. As you go from here till here, your relative humidity increases. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to represent some common processes on the psychrometric chart. Now, one of the first processes which we are going to learn is something called sensible heating or cooling. Sensible heating or cooling is when you either add or remove heat from whatever you are trying to heat or cool, and there is no phase change involved. So heating or cooling where there is no phase change involved is something called sensible heating or cooling. In sensible heating or cooling of air, there is no change in the specific humidity of the air, because you're not allowing any humidity to enter the air, or you're not allowing any humidity to escape the air. What the specific humidity of the air is going to remain constant. So if we represent sensible, let's just say sensible cooling of the air, we'll be moving from right to left. So decreasing values of dry bulb temperature. So sensible cooling of air is going to be represented by a horizontal line moving from right to left. This is sensible cooling. Similarly, sensible heating is going to be represented by a line moving from left to right. Let us assume the case of sensible cooling. So we are moving from higher dry bulb temperature to lower dry bulb temperature. Higher dry bulb temperature to lower dry bulb temperature. As you can see, we are moving from higher dry bulb temperature to lower dry bulb temperature. We will also notice that the values of enthalpy are also reducing. You can see that these lines, which were located here and here, show that our enthalpy values are reducing. Also, what is reducing is our wet bulb temperature. You can see the values of wet bulb temperature reduce. So in the case of sensible cooling, you have constant specific humidity, you have got reduction in enthalpy, reduction in wet bulb temperature, and a reduction in dry bulb temperature. For sensible heating is the opposite. Constant specific humidity, increasing values of dry bulb temperature, increasing values of wet bulb temperature, increasing values of specific humidity. This bottle has been kept in the fridge for a while. As soon as I've taken it out of the fridge, what's started to happen is that water started condensing on its surfaces. Now, we will utilize the psychrometric chart to explain why this happens. So, once I've taken this bottle out of the fridge, the contents of this bottle are very cold. Due to conduction effects, the air surrounding this bottle also cools down. As it cools down, the temperature of the air reduces. The temperature of the air reduces. This causes a reduction in wet bulb temperature. At some point of time, the temperature of this air is going to reduce to such an extent that the air surrounding it can no longer hold water. That means that this air surrounding this bottle is now saturated. So at this point in time, you have a straight line which touches this saturation curve. Once it touches the saturation curve, what's going to happen is that the excess moisture in the air surrounding it is going to start coming out of phase, out of the mixture of air, and it's going to start condensing. Alright? Now, as soon as it starts condensing, what's going to happen is that the water vapor or the water present in the air is going to reduce. So it's going to move from this direction, that is horizontal, to along this direction. So the net water vapor content is also going to reduce. Alright? So this is a process of cooling and dehumidification, and you can see this happening commonly in day-to-day locations such as refrigerators or air conditioning units. You can see water coming outside, and it is collected and it is disposed of. So as soon as it cools, it reaches saturation. After saturation, what's going to happen is that water is going to come out of phase, and that's going to condense here, and that causes a reduction in humidity.